I'm going to give a hypothetical example here, all right? Say there is a round table, and on this table there is a pile of very strong evidence, a pile from many different sources, very good evidence from all over that supports the old Earth theory or whatever, young Earth theory. Just all the great evidence out there, okay? That supports the old Earth theory. Let's go ahead and say just the old Earth theory. And around the table, there are 10 people, okay? Now, let's say one of the people, one of the 10 people, really studies all the evidence that he could possibly do. He studies all the best evidence that he's got. And he does a perfectly reasonable argument, okay? And he comes up with a claim. This is how old the Earth is or something. And all the other 9 people take the same evidence, and they come up with different claims than his. Now, if you don't know anything about the evidence on that table, you're going to say, wow, all these arguments seem reasonable to me. And it's because you don't know any better. If you looked at the evidence, or better yet, if you looked at their reasoning and you read all 10 of their dissertations or whatever that they're writing, you'll see that some people cover more evidence or cover better evidence. They choose the better evidence on the table. All right? Or better yet, they make the evidence flow better. They say this evidence supports this claim, and it flows. This evidence supports this claim. This evidence supports this claim. Look how it flows to its logical conclusion. All these things support this claim, and this is what I've got. Here you go. Okay? And they use as much evidence as possible. Now, if you come up with a totally different claim, it doesn't mean that you are more reasonable. It means that you are using different evidence. If you're being reasonable and you have a different set of evidences, then you put that together and make it flow in a reasonable way, you can come up with a totally different claim. And the way that 2 reasonable people would duke out the claim is if they met and fettered out, okay, what's wrong here? What is going on? And they'll battle it out, look at each other's reasoning, and what happens most often is that they will find, this piece of evidence misled you, or actually you missed this piece of evidence which accounts for that evidence over there and more. It gives you more information that will lead you to my conclusion. And if they are both reasonable, after they look at each other's evidence and glean it off of each other and say, aha, this is the most reasonable argument, and it doesn't matter who wins or whatnot, it's all about what you get at the end. This process of coming together and being reasonable about it has a name, and it's called the peer review process in science. It's where other people look at your reasoning, look at the evidence you used, and criticized it. All right, here you go, 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 here you go. Okay? Does that mean that because person B, who had a different claim from person A, does that mean he's not being reasonable? No. And is it irrational to agree with person B without looking at person A and knowing what he did? No. I mean, if that's the best person you've got, you don't know any better, it's rational to agree with him. And when person A comes along and says, actually, you missed a whole lot, here you go, here's the evidence that accounts for that and more, and it usually means more evidence is presented, and it's better reasoned or something, then you say, it would be reasonable to go with person A at that point. Does that mean that you are being unreasonable to disagree with person B now? Because person B had good evidence. He used the evidence on the table. All the evidence was good, but he didn't use enough of the evidence, or he didn't use it in the right way. Actually, no, I'm sorry. He didn't use enough evidence, or he didn't use the right pieces of evidence. He just grabbed what he could. Does that mean that person B is unreasonable? No, because he did have a reasonable argument, didn't he? Yes. Okay. So your claim here that to not draw the conclusion would be to not draw the same conclusion would violate the rational ought. That's false. That's false. All right. Going on, you cannot get a moral ought from a rational ought, from being rational in the atheistic empirical sense. That's your claim. I disagree strongly with this. Actually, the closest, I'm not an atheist myself. I'm coincidentally, my religious viewpoints kind of go along with Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, to be precise. And it's all about being here now. Or in other words, just observing, which is empiricism. Here, this is what is. This water bottle is. Oh, okay. Be here now. You're saying that I cannot get a moral ought from the rational ought, which is, in other words, in the Buddhist sense, to be here now. Incorrect. And I'm going to explain why. Enlightenment can be described as having a very, very clear mind, of just being here now, of being in a state of nowness, of experiencing merely what is, the rational isness, or in other words, this is the way it should be. You should be here now. That's the Buddhist rational oughtness. Like, okay. Because really, this is actually kind of funny because in the Buddhist sense, the moral ought is the same as the rational ought, which is to just be here now. You should be here now. And in a sense, the Zen Buddhist thing is more here and now than the atheist claim. Zen Buddhism is actually kind of very, very atheist. They don't care about the afterlife really so much. You cannot get a moral ought from the case of what merely is. If you completely clear your mind of all the crap in your head, you will know immediately what to do next. Give you an example here. I just came back from the ATM around 1:30 in the morning or so. I was out shopping at Kroger. Kroger's open 24/7. And I realized that my PIN number on my debit card was messed up. All right? I couldn't do it. Now, immediately, my mind said my mom messed up the PIN number on my card. And immediately I started thinking, wow, I really hate my mom. My mom never loved me. She's being very childish. Blah, 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 blah. Some psychologists would call that mind talk. Just stuff comes out. When really what happened was the PIN number on my debit card is messed up. And then I took a breath, cleared my mind, and said, all right, what is the PIN number on my debit card is messed up? Do I know that my mom did it? No. What might be the case is that my bank just messed up somehow. Maybe there was a crash, a computer crash or something. I don't know that. I say I don't know that, but that might be the case. That's more likely the case. Does my mom love me? Yes, definitely. You look at my past history. My mom's always been there for me, etc., etc., etc. So what was the moral choice that I made? I chose not to call my mom and tell her to fix my problem because she messed it up, you know? Clearly she messed it up. My moral choice was to not be suspicious of my mom.